For objective based, what I like to think about is it's kind of like you're playing Super Mario Brothers, and throughout the game you're collecting these little tokens, and once you collect enough tokens, like you power up, right? So like it kind of like unlocks the next level. Very similar to objective based. It means that your marketing budget is going to be based off of how well your initiatives are working, right?
Hey everyone, welcome to the S.O.B Marketing Podcast, where we celebrate the S.O.B that you are, and if you haven't figured it out yet, we mean small-owned business. We don't mean S.O.B.
Listen, we know that as a small business owner, you are working hard on the daily to keep your business fully operational while trying to promote it. And while some days it may feel like the business is owning you, if we're being honest with each other, I bet you would admit that you wouldn't give up the insanity for anything.
Our commitment here at the S.O.B Marketing Podcast is to give you the real talk, what works when it comes to advertising, marketing, promoting your business, and then what doesn't really work.
And Chelsea and I promise to always keep the conversation real.
Hey Vivian.
Hey Chelsea.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the S.O.B Marketing Podcast. S.O.B as in small-owned business, not S.O.B as in son of a...
Yeah.
Before we begin, just want to say thank you to all of our listeners. Your support really means a lot to us. If you have a topic that you want us to discuss, go ahead and email us at help@theseasonmarketer, and we will definitely discuss that topic. We're here to help you all with your marketing initiatives. So go ahead, subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and
5 stars only.
And we will continue to talk about these marketing topics. So Vivian, what are we talking about today?
Yes, so today's topic is actually going to be about the fun stuff, money, marketing budgets, right? So I wanted to start the conversation by telling you the wackiest little story. I feel like sometimes I live in the Wild West of marketing world, right?
Okay.
And it basically means that I've had some really strange experiences over the 15 plus years that I've been doing this. Okay. And one of the most notable experiences that I've had is this was back in the day. I don't know if a lot of our listeners will remember, but there was this craze that was going on back in, it must have been like before 2010, right? Before 2010 or around that time.
Okay.
And it was sign flippers. People who would stand on the corner and flip signs. And I kid you not when I say that I worked for a small physicians group, and one of the doctors had gone out to California for some reason. And I guess he went to a sandwich shop and he saw that there was a guy out there flipping signs to try to draw attention and to bring more people inside to eat at the sandwich shop. So by the time he gets back, we have a meeting, we sit down, and he says, Vivian, I want you to hire a sign flipper. And I'm like, we're healthcare. Like we're doctors.
What do you put on the sign? What do you put on the sign?
He was going to have to, I think we got a generic. So this is the weird part. Okay. Is I thought he was joking, and I tried to I was talking to him and I was like, surely you're not serious. I kind of laughed it off, and he's like, no, I want you to start interviewing people to be sign flippers. So I kid you not, Chelsea, when I say that, I sat there, I interviewed someone and basically was like, can you show me your dance moves? Can you pretend you're holding a sign?
Did you not provide them a sign? You should have provided them a sign and been like, show me your moves.
I know, but see, I didn't have a sign already made because I think I was kind of hoping this request would go away. Okay. But I don't know what made me think I was qualified to judge someone else's dance moves, because certainly I'm the last person that should be judging it. So anyways, we ended up hiring somebody, and they stood outside of our urgent care center flipping a sign, which, I mean, listen, it was on a main road. I get it. And it probably did draw attention. But the reason I bring that up is because there is so much that you can invest your marketing dollars in when it comes to marketing initiatives. And the one thing that is going to keep you from kind of going down these rabbit holes of random shiny object syndrome,
Yeah.
right? Random things that you see that you want to emulate is having a concise marketing budget. So Chelsea, why don't we start there and talk about why it's so important to small business owners to actually try to have a marketing budget? Because I do think that's probably when you're in the midst of the day-to-day, keeping your business running operationally, you're dealing with HR stuff. That just seems to be the last thing that most people really want to think about is how am I going to sit down and actually create a marketing budget? So why is it important?
For small business owners, creating a marketing budget is going to help you keep your spending in check. So when you create a marketing budget, you're saying this is how much I'm willing to spend in the maybe year, maybe quarter. It doesn't have to be a yearly budget, but you're saying in this allotted amount of time, this is how much I'm willing to spend. It'll also make sure not only that you don't overspend, but that you don't underspend too, because remember, investing in your small business and investing in marketing is what's going to help your small business grow. So you don't want to underspend either.
I really love that you brought that up because I guess that's the other thing is it could happen if you don't sit down and take the time to outline how much money you're wanting to spend on these marketing initiatives. It get to the point where you now have your 2 quarters into a year and you're like, crap, I haven't spent but like $2,000 on any type of marketing stuff. And so by going in there and actually creating that budget ahead of time, you're being strategic in the sense that you are ensuring that at every point throughout the year, you are reinvesting some of those dollars back into your business. That essentially should be, if you're doing marketing the right way, it should be growing your business, right? So it gives you a positive return on investment.
Let's say that you have a marketing person in-house. Creating a marketing budget is going to help them understand what they can spend their money on and make those decisions of, yes, this is something that's worth spending money on, and no, this isn't worth it. So I know a lot for small business owners, they may not have an in-house marketing person, but for me personally, when I worked for the healthcare facility that I worked for, I didn't have a budget and I had to have everything approved. That's fine if that's how you want to do it. But because I didn't have a budget, I didn't know if doing this one marketing initiative would stop me from doing a better one later on in the year. So I didn't have that frame of mind. I couldn't make educated decisions.
Well, and that's the part that there are 2 components to it. If you are doing your marketing in-house and you don't have someone, right? You're the one managing your marketing dollars, then for sure, I think similar to what you're saying, it also helps you with being able to strategically decide on whether or not you want to pull the trigger on something or if you want to wait for a bigger, better opportunity. And especially as you referenced your experience, if you have somebody that is assigned to doing your marketing in-house, giving them a budget gives them, for one, I think it helps them just be more creative with the ideas they bring to the table. What I put together in a marketing campaign at a budget of $20,000 is going to be insanely different compared to something that's only $5,000.
Yeah.
Right? And so you may at $5,000 say, okay, I'm going to invest like maybe a quarter of that into guerrilla marketing tactics because I feel like that's going to give me on a tight budget way more leverage, right? It'll take a little more time, but it's going to give me way more leverage in the long run. Whereas if you have a bigger budget like 20,000, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to do less guerrilla marketing. I'm going to do more of the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely, it helps to guide and to come up with those ideas. I think the other thing that having a marketing budget does is year after year, it helps you to see which initiatives are really worth your time. So if you happen to have a budget, because ideally your budget should increase slightly if your business is growing, right? And so let's also talk about the fact that Well, let's leave that for here in a second. We'll address what that marketing budget should be, right? Like how you go about calculating that or deciding it. So if you have a person like Chelsea who's out there and they're, handling all your marketing for your small business, if Chelsea's doing a good job with her marketing campaigns and the initiatives that she's selected, you should see an increase in your revenue, which means then the next year when you're projecting your marketing budget, you should be able to bump that up some. And so that's the whole thing. Is I think it really helps that if you've been in business for more than a year, over time, you're going to start to see the transition and the escalation of that marketing budget. And it gives you a good indication that your business is healthy and it's doing well, and that you're on the right track with regards to where you're investing that money.
Also, with a marketing budget, it's going to be easier for you to keep track of your return on investment, your ROI. So you can look at, okay, I spent this amount of money on this ad or this campaign. Did I make in that time frame a return on investment or not?
So essentially what you're saying is basically it helps to be sure that you're covering your expenses and that you are actually making money from that ad or from that billboard or whatever it is that you put out there, that digital banner. But I think that's the thing, is a lot of people, if they don't have a marketing budget in place, they are less prone to actually going in there and keeping track of their marketing expenses, right? So like sometimes if you don't have a budget in place, I mean, it's kind of like you with your, concerts. I mean, you don't have a concert budget. You're out there, going to every concert here and there. You're going to be broke by the end of this year. I mean, that's the thing, is you kind of have to have a game plan going into it in order to be sure that you're adhering to it, because like you're saying, you could get to the point where you're underspending and then overspending, and how wild that sometimes, if you're not truly intentional about putting this together ahead of time, you could be spending all of your marketing budget in the fourth quarter.
A marketing budget will also help you with seasonal changes. So let's consider you're a salon, you do waxing. You're probably going to see a little less traction in the winter months. So having a marketing budget is going to help you prepare for those winter months, because you're going to want to spend a little bit more money during that time, right? So having a marketing budget is going to make sure that you don't spend all the money that you want to spend in a year all in those like summer months, and then you're going to have nothing at the end of the year.
Yeah. So one really great way to look at it is think of like a graph, and ideally for a small business, we all know that we have peaks and dips, right, in our revenue throughout the year. And like you're saying, depending on what your industry is, this better, right? So in healthcare, we know typically when the dip is. Same thing with salons, all of that stuff. So ideally, what you can do then is, if you have a marketing budget in place, you can try to make those dips, elevate them some, right? So they're not as like bad. So that way, if you take a loss, or you see a lot less revenue in like June and July, you can preemptively get in front of that if you spend a little more money in, let's say, April and May, right? To kind of like subsequently get those appointments in, or do whatever, create, sales and products or services. So I think that's what you're saying, is eventually you can start to level out those dips within your revenue throughout the year. And a lot of that takes planning. So if we haven't convinced you already, you guys, marketing budgets are super important. Now let's talk about what's the right and wrong way to do a marketing budget. And the answer to that, truthfully, is there is no right or wrong way to do it. You need to do what's best for your small business.
I actually did some research before we started recording this episode, because I wanted to see, I wanted to see what information was out there in regards to marketing budgets. And I mean, the range in numbers Some websites said, oh, you need to spend 9% of your revenue. Some said 30 to 40. Some said 15 to 20. Like, you can't tell a small business how much money they need to be spending because you are not in that position. So I'm just saying, like, Googling, looking for the answer is not going to give you a straightforward answered one. And even if everyone said, oh, this is how much money you need to be spending, I wouldn't listen to it.
Right. And we are telling you here firsthand as people who have been managing marketing dollars for a long time for other businesses and now for our own business as well. There is such a variety of different ways that you can do this. And like we said, there is no right or wrong way. And don't, like Chelsea said, don't listen to what somebody printed in a blog just because, you know, they say it should be at 9%. Let's look at this by factors, okay? So considerations that you want to take whenever you are setting your marketing budget is, for one, you need to look at your industry. There are industry standards. And the only reason you want to do this is not to play the comparison game, but if you're in an industry that is highly competitive with marketing investment, so let's say technology, right? You know that people in technology, I mean, goodness, they have to put a lot of money into getting their brand name out there because it's so competitive. And healthcare is one of them as well. Like, there's a range, I think in healthcare, we always talk about 30% is like a healthy amount to reinvest for marketing. Is that doable all the time? Absolutely not. But you can go, and we do encourage you to go onto some of these websites that are based on industry, whatever industry you are in, and just look at what the range is. Okay. That just kind of gives you an idea of what competitors may be out there doing. And you don't have to fall within that range if you can't, but it's good for you to keep a pulse on that type of information anyways. The other thing is, you want to be sure that you are considering where you are in the growth stage of your business. If you are at the very beginning, you are probably going to have to do a little more marketing than if you are well established and 15 years in, right? And your brand name can kind of carry you through some of that. So the other thing is, the initiatives that you choose as a 15-year-old company or business compared to the initiatives that you're choosing as a 6-month-old company are very different. That's all stuff that you want to take into consideration. And then I would say the other thing is, you need to look at where you are with your revenue, right? So be realistic. The thing is, it is not a good idea for you to say, I'm going to allocate 50% of my revenue to marketing initiatives if you're not making a whole lot of money right now, right?
It's all about making an educated decision. I mean, you can't just pick a number because it sounds right. You need to, like you said, look at your industry, your business size, your growth stage, and you need to actually take the time and really think about what your marketing budget is going to be. I mean, I know that a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to make a marketing budget because that sounds really difficult. We're not saying it's easy, but it's going to take effort. It's not hard, but it's going to take effort. Right. And it's worth the time because it's going to help you in the long run.
Like you said, it's not rocket science either. The thing is, I think the hardest part is making the commitment to sit down and review and actually look at the data, right? So if you have if you say that you're going to do a marketing budget, you have to actually hold yourself accountable to keeping up with your expenses, being sure that you have data on the return on investment, and you have to be able to track that stuff. And so that's the hardest part, is saying, yes, I'm going to make the commitment to actually stay on top of my marketing budget and be sure that I'm getting analytical information that I could use to make business decisions in the long run. Do you love making crafts and working on your small business but struggle to get them in front of customers?
Do craft fairs, events, or pop-ups leave you feeling overwhelmed or frustrated?
Introducing Rock Your Fair, the course designed to help you succeed in the world of craft fairs, pop-ups, and events, created by 2 marketing professionals with over 15 years of experience. Rock Your Fair is perfect for anyone who's new to the game game or just wants to step up their game.
Our step-by-step approach will guide you through everything you need to know, from choosing the right events, to setting up your booth, to marketing your products effectively.
And you know what? You'll also get access to us for personalized coaching and feedback so you can put your best foot forward.
Do not let craft fairs, pop-ups, and events hold you back. Sign up for Rock Your Fair today and start rocking your way to success.
For a limited time, get access to our free mini course. Simply head over to our website at www.theseasonmarketer.com and click on workshops.
Well, and let's talk about the fact that you don't have to do like a percentage of your revenue. You could have a fixed budget.
No,
so
yeah.
You could say, I'm only going to spend like $20,000 this year on marketing. Or you could do objective-based budgeting, which Vivian and I were talking about this earlier today, and you had a really good analogy that I want you to share.
Yeah, so for objective-based, what I like to think about is it's kind of like you're playing Super Mario Brothers, and throughout the game you're collecting these little tokens, and once you collect enough tokens, like you power up, right? So like it kind of like unlocks the next level. Very similar to objective based. It means that your marketing budget is going to be based off of how well your initiatives are working, right? And so that takes a little more, I think, of a thought process or pre-planning on the part of a business. And you have to know your business intimately well to be able to do that. But it also helps too, I think, with goal setting, right? So if as a business, you guys have a particular goal and you hit that, and then you're able to then add on some more of these, dollars into your marketing budget. It's all just in the way that you're framing and looking at stuff. Now, typically, I've done this both ways. I have had experience with doing a percentage of budget, which is really helpful if you are in a business where like your revenue tends to range year after year, because it means the healthier your business is, it means you're going to be allocating an equal amount of resources to marketing, right? So if I'm at $100,000 and I reinvest 6%, then if I'm at $200,000 and I reinvest 6%, it means that my marketing dollars are proportionally growing to the size of my company or my business.
Yes,
so that works really great.
Now, can I say from a different standpoint, let's say that you don't want to do a percentage of your budget, you want to do a fixed budget, but you don't feel comfortable with saying this is how much I'm going to spend in a year. Don't do a year. Do a quarter. Do it by quarters, or do it by half a year. Say I'm going to spend, I don't know, like $10,000 for the first quarter. And then maybe for the second quarter, you say, you know what? I feel like I could have spent more money. I'm going to spend $12,000 or $15,000 for quarter two. If you feel more comfortable cutting it up like that and doing fixed budget, then do it.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think the biggest deterrent for small business owners in creating a marketing budget is that it gets overwhelming because they think they have to do it annually. And y'all, you don't. This is your business. You can run it any way you want. And I do think that cutting it up into more bite-sized pieces, if you will, helps quite a bit, because at least then people feel like they could take, a couple months and they can really look at, okay, how much am I expecting to bring in revenue-wise? How much am I willing to realistically reinvest back into my business on the marketing end? And part of that has to do with, there's also a lot of planning that goes into what initiatives you want to roll out. So you may have a really big project, marketing wise, that you want to complete, but realistically it may take you, 6 months to get this set up. And so that's where I think it kind of helps a lot to cut it up.
For me personally, and this is my personal opinion, this is how I feel comfortable, but I think cutting it up into quarterly little bite-sized pieces helps you a lot with experimentation. I really like looking at marketing and saying, how can I do this different? How can we stand out? And a lot of that comes down to doing marketing a little bit differently and experimenting with the ways that you market your small business. That's a little bit easier, in my opinion, when you have bite-sized pieces as your marketing budget. I feel like it can be difficult to look at a yearly marketing budget and say, I want to spend this amount of money on an experiment. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But you know what? There's also a hybrid between the two. So I
That's
think
true.
so I think the way I like to, when I'm doing this for other businesses, if you are coming up with a marketing budget, I think it's good to know overall what your total dollar goal is, right? So let's say I know I want to spend $60,000 in 1 year. I then divide that up into quarters and then divide that up into months. And what that does is then over time, I'm able to judge what are the big initiatives that we need to complete, right? So if you have to revamp your website, that's a big cost, right? That's a bigger cost. And so as you kind of like fill these in, you're able to narrow down and to set money aside for that experimentation, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to utilize all of the money within that month or within that quarter. You can have some overage that you carry into, or it could be that you come in under budget. That's also very doable.
But that is a great way of explaining it, though. And I think that'll probably help a lot of our listeners is you take your yearly budget, you cut it into quarters, then you cut it into months. So that way it's more visible.
Does that make sense? It's just like budgeting for your household, right? So like the thing is you have two types of things that you budget for. You budget for your fixed expenses and you budget for your variable expenses. And in marketing, you have the same things. Your fixed expenses are going to be the things that month after month you have to pay for to keep your marketing consistent, right? So let's say that I sign a contract for an ad at the beginning of the year, and this contract is going to go in a magazine. And this magazine is going to be published on a monthly basis.
Okay.
I know that I'm spending $300 per month on this ad, and it's going to be a 12-month contract. That is my fixed cost. That's one of them. Now, the variable costs are going to be for the things that you're talking about, Chelsea, which is going to be the experimentation, right? So as my budget shapes out, I know that I have, I don't know, maybe like $2,000 every month that I can play around with to try new things for marketing stuff. And if I don't want to use it in that month, I can save that $2,000, roll it over to the next month, and then I have $4,000 if I want to try something bigger. So I think it's all just kind of like correlated, and it's a big coordination, just like it would be for any of your household budgeting that you're doing. But it does help to have, if you are willing to sit down and to take the time to do a yearly budget that then you could break down into quarters and then maybe into months, that will benefit, I think, your business. But it all depends. Are you at the very starting phase of a business? Are you kind of in that growth phase? Or are you, well established? That's all going to dictate how you view your budgeting.
Yeah. I really like the conversation we're having about you can roll over the money, because so our father was in the military, right? I don't know if you remember this, but he would come home and he would say, "Oh, we had to buy this, this, and this, even though we don't need it, because we had to spend that money. Because if they didn't spend the money, then they'd give them less money the next month. And they wanted to make sure that they got all the money, so they'd buy frivolous things." You're not the military. You don't have to spend your money.
So what Chelsea's talking about is, and y'all, we're not telling you anything you don't know, okay? It's a known fact that in contracting and in government spending, they have budgets. And they have this term called use it or lose it. And there's a reason they use that term, okay? So basically, it's known if you have, let's say, a budget of $20,000 for the year, it's a made up number, $20,000. And at the end of the year, the government for each squadron or whatever, they see that you have only spent $10,000. What are they going to do the next year? They're going to say, oh, well, you know what? They're really good at saving money. So this year we're only going to give them $10,000. And so that's the fear that people have, is like, if I don't use it, I'm going to lose it for the next year. So what do they do? Like Chelsea's saying, is they'll go out and they'll order like jackets with their logos on it or something like that, because they just want to spend the money before the end of the year. Otherwise they're going to get cut, right? They're going to get a cut in their spending dollars. So you're not.
Yeah, you're not
the government.
You're not the government.
You're not the military.
You can save your
money.
So
you guys can. Yes, you can save your money. If you come in under budget, you don't have to cut your marketing budget the next year.
But if you come in under budget, then you can look at it and say, oh, you know what? This is where I could have filled it in. And you can have that in perspective when you make your budget for next year. You don't have to cut your budget for next year, but you can see where you can make those changes. So maybe you spend a little more. You don't come in under budget.
Yeah, and let's also talk about how marketing budgets correlate. Okay, if you are a solopreneur, if you are a person that is running your business by yourself and you don't have any help, that's just where you are right now in your business, then you also have to be realistic about the fact that if you can't spend, it takes a lot of upkeep, right? When we talk about doing marketing, I know everyone's like, oh, it's just signing contracts. No, y'all. Like, I mean, there is, Karen and I were talking about this the other day for the spa at Nexton. Whenever you sign a contract, she has to look at the ad. She has to make sure the information's correct. She's got to give input on how she wants the ad to look. Maybe it's not to her standards. There are all of these variables that go into just keeping and maintaining your marketing initiatives, period, that if you're a solopreneur, maybe that's not going to be where you want to spend your time right now if you're just trying to, get your business established. So your budget has to align with where you are. Now, let's say then you're a business that has been around for 5 years and you have somebody in-house that handles your marketing for you, then you're going to be able to maintain a bigger budget because you have someone that's solely dedicated that you're paying to doing that.
Yes.
So I think that's where marketing budgets are so important to small businesses. And I think it's the one thing that a lot of times people just don't, it seems like a pain to have to sit down and do that, right? But the amount of valuable information and data that you could get from taking that leap really definitely helps.
Well, Vivian, let's go ahead and do, I think, a recap of the most important points. So when creating a marketing budget, you want to take into consideration your business size, the industry, and the growth stage. There's different types of budgeting. You can do a percentage of revenue. You can do a fixed budget or objective base. So that's your Mario Kart one. Or
that's right. Let's also point out here though, when I use the analogy, I said Super Mario Brothers and you said Mario Kart. I've never played Mario Kart. This is an age difference right there. I don't even know what Mario Kart is.
Wait. I haven't played either of those. It's just I recognized Mario Kart first.
The Mario Kart?
Yeah.
It's still a generational difference, if you ask me.
I play Legend of Zelda, so I don't play Mario games.
I just know she's the lady with the sword.
Incorrect. Link is a guy, but okay. Oh. Zelda
shows
is
how
the
much
girl.
I know.
She's the princess, but she doesn't have the sword. Link has the sword. He's a guy. Okay.
You teach me something new every day. Thank you.
The point was you can do percentage of revenue, fixed budget, or objective-based budgeting.
Yeah, and I think the last thing is just to remind people that there is no right or wrong way to do this, okay? Do what's best for your small business, depending on where you are in your business stage, right? Whether it's growth or if you are just beginning, it's going to look different. And also, like Chelsea said, do it based on like industry or just what works best for you. You know what your patterns are and what you are likely to keep up with and not keep up with, right? So don't say you're going to do monthly budgets if you definitely are not going to keep up with it. Do quarterly.
Well, and a marketing budget and just budgets in general are very personal. So just like your personal budget, my personal budget is going to be different from Vivian's. This marketing budget for this business is going to be different from this other one. It's just personal.
Yeah, I spend way too much of my budget on eggs and milk compared to Chelsea. She spends it on the fun stuff. The thing is, to your point, that is, make sure it's customized to what you want. So you definitely, you're able to just remember, the more you track and the more cognizant you are of putting this marketing budget together, the more data, valuable information it's going to give you, right? Which at the end of the year, you can then use to plan for the following year and also just to see how well things are going. And let me just tell you guys, if you're at the point where you do not have somebody that's handling your internal marketing right now, having a budget beforehand is going to help you know when to pull the trigger on actually hiring somebody. Right. So I think that's the thing, is all of this data can be used to just help your business overall, not just on the marketing aspect, but to make good business decisions along the way. All right. So I think that's it, Chelsea. That's it for our podcast. Thank you guys for joining us. And just remember, you can find us on YouTube or on any of the podcast streaming places under S.O.B Marketing Podcast. But don't forget that we have another YouTube channel where we upload marketing videos, and we have over 200 marketing videos available for you to watch now if you want to do that. And that's under The Seasoned Marketer. And you can find our website under theseasonedmarketer.com as well.
And go out there and be the best SOB you can be.